Hey Daily Dosers, it's Kristen from the Fallbrook campus, and I love to buy a Christmas ornament to commemorate every year. And so this past December, I go on Amazon, I want a 2020 ornament, and the same ornament keeps coming up. It's just toilet paper ornaments, and I guess it was the year of toilet paper. And I'm like, you know what? I don't need an ornament to remind me of the toilet paper apocalypse of 2020. And I just remember watching these videos on YouTube of these people fighting over toilet paper in Walmart and just thinking, wow, it's so interesting what panic brings out of us, and what scarcity, and when we're scared, and this idea that we all became hoarders like overnight. And I don't mean to brag, but I was way ahead of you guys on the whole hoarding thing, because 2019 was my hoarding year, and I didn't hoard toilet paper, but I'm still guilty of hoarding. And what my vice was is I hoarded myself, which is a super weird sentence to say, but what I mean by that is I was in such a place of utter depletion that I hoarded what little part of myself I felt like I had left, whether it was my time, my energy, my resources, because maybe like some of you have experienced what it's like to have two really young kids at home. I had a very physically and mentally demanding toddler and a very emotional and sensitive kindergartner. And between the two of them, I was fully depleted every single day. And some people are great with little kids and they say, oh, I hope my kids never grow up. I hope they stay little forever. And no matter how much I love them, or no matter how funny or cute certain things that they do are, I still would not say I hope my kids never grow up, because that's just a hard stage for me. So I fell into this pattern of hoarding and saw every person as a potential, like, what do you want to take from me? And so I really was very protective of myself, of my time, of my resources, of my energy, of even my engagement. But you know, the ironic thing about hoarding is that when we hoard, we're actually at our poorest, because that's when we're in the biggest deficit of faith and trust. We try so hard to hold on to what we have, and we end up being more poor than we've ever been. And I love the story in 2 Kings 4 of a widow who had just lost everything. She had lost her husband and she had lost all her wealth, and the only thing remaining was a whole lot of debt. And she couldn't pay it, and so they were threatening to take her two sons away, and they were going to be slaves basically to pay off a debt that she couldn't pay. So she cries out to the prophet Elijah, because he had just done some incredible miracles through God. And in 2 Kings chapter 4, verse 2, it says, Elijah replied to her, how can I help you? Tell me, what do you have in your house? Your servant has nothing there at all, she said, except a small jar of olive oil. Elisha said, go around and ask all your neighbors for empty jars. Don't just ask for a few. Then go inside, shut the door behind you and your sons, pour oil into all the jars, and as each is filled, put it to one side. She left him and shut the door behind her and her sons. They brought the jars to her, and she kept pouring. When all the jars were full, she said to her son, bring me another one. But he replied, there is not a jar left. Then the oil stopped flowing. She went and told the man of God, and he said, go sell the oil and pay your debts. You and your sons can live on what's left. And in this story, we don't necessarily just see a miracle of what she had, but we see the miracle of what she didn't have. This was something of not what she wished she had, but God used the little that she did have, because number one, she asked. She asked for help. Number two, she was obedient and faithful despite her resources or lack thereof, and she obeyed what was asked of her. What she had was already enough when it was poured out in obedience, and once she kept pouring, it kept flowing. And just like me, maybe you fall into this trap of, well, when I have more, I'll pour more. But that's not the way it works. When our faith and our obedience intersect and they turn into motion, God brings the increase. God brings the flow. So here's the encouragement in all of this, because this week we're talking about encouragement. If you're in a perceived season of deficit, don't hoard the little that you do have, because no amount of resources that we manufacture are going to bring about the solution to our problem. Resources aren't our problem. The problem we have is a lack of faith and a lack of trust, and that's masked by this need of self-preservation and hoarding. Spurgeon said that faith is the wealth of the heavenly life. And pouring out is hard. So remember who you're pouring for, not for people. So keep pouring even when they don't say thank you. Keep pouring when people don't reciprocate. Keep pouring maybe when nobody even notices, because remember who your audience is. Thanks, dosers. We'll see you tomorrow.